Hi, and welcome to an interesting podcast that was kind of apropos. Uh, I'm Mike Grayworks. My indie animations and occasional video essays every now and then. Today, I am joined by a very, very special guest, Princess Weeks. Would you like to introduce yourself?
Hi, I'm Princess Weeks. I am also a writer, YouTuber, content creator person who has spent an ungodly amount of time talking about the politics of Avatar The Last Airbender. So
Mhm.
I'm happy to be here
Mhm.
with my Zutara nails. So
Ooh, very nice.
yeah, on
Yeah.
theme.
Yeah, and there's her YouTube channel. I love seeing how people are able to like stylize different stuff. I
Oh
thought
yeah.
I thought of doing themes for every now and then, but like it just gets so tough to like organize a costume to where I'll just like I don't know how cosplayers do it.
I know. I'm friends with a bunch of cosplayers and they are really doing incredible work.
Oh god, yeah, just it's insane. Every now and then I see it's just like, should you be like, I don't know, just making like Hollywood grade stuff?
Right.
So I just get around by it by just cooking for the most part. But
Yeah.
uh, today we are discussing something that I think has become an interesting topic in kind of the last maybe 5 years. I say post 2020 because
Mhm.
we are going to be talking about Avatar: The Last Airbender. I doubt it needs an introduction, but for the three people who have not seen it, Avatar: The Last Airbender was a show that appeared on Nickelodeon. It aired in 2005. It ran to 2009, 2011, something like that. Three seasons, and it had a sequel series, Korra. Avatar is about the fantasy world of Avatar: The Last Airbender and the Four Nations, and
Mhm.
the uh, Avatar Aang, who's meant to bring balance to the Four Nations. However, he's 12 years old now, and he is 100 years in the future, basically, when there's war, and it's all in the middle stuff. And the Avatar has been gone for 100 years, and now he has to travel the world and master the elements to restore balance to the world.
Mhm.
And for years, Avatar was one of the most praised shows, especially like in Western like circles like America. And it is a really, really well done show. I quite like it quite a
Mhm.
bit. Uh, but with stuff like, I think it first started with the comics as well as Korra,
Mhm.
and now its latest Avatar show. It's had an interesting kind of like reflection. I also think it's appropriate because it's been 20 years at this
Yeah.
point, which is crazy to think about.
I
Just like
know.
time passes. But people are reflecting on some of the characters and some of the politics and some of the commentary on it.
Mhm.
Some fans get really defensive, other fans are more open-minded, and not all points I think are valid. I think it's fair to say, as with how a lot of these things go. But I think it's an interesting just kind of like resurgence, because for years it kind of felt like it was almost like heresy if you had
Mhm.
any issues with Avatar.
Yeah.
And funny enough, I got to rewatch it as an adult not too long ago for two different people. Uh, Afternoon Tune and friend of the show, Macabre Storytelling, both
Mm.
great people. Afternoon Tune, Josh, he is the host of a podcast and they talk about movies, TV shows, and all that stuff. Macabre Storytelling is, I think he's an interesting person to talk about when it comes to this because have you heard of him? He's made a
I
few,
haven't.
yeah, he's very, very talented.
Mhm.
But he's made a lot of videos talk about mostly, he got very popular by talking about like the manosphere and like men's
Mm.
stuff. Not pro manosphere.
Yeah, I figured if you're friends with them.
Yeah, but yeah, honestly, that was why I did not watch his channel for a long time, because he was talking about like men's body issues, and I'm
Mhm.
just like, I've seen a cute few people with like a red background, but
Yeah.
uh, but he also he did not watch Avatar until he was like in his late 20s.
Mm.
Funny enough, because he heard of it, but he never watched it. He watched it because there was like internet beef about Korra. Because if
Mm.
there's going to be internet beef about Avatar in
There's
general,
always internet beef about something
it's
having to
all,
do with Avatar.
yeah. But it's like it's gonna be Korra the character. Let's be real. And, so he got to watch it for a video he made because he put up a poll about like, hey, what do you want here we talk about? And it was Avatar, and he
Mhm.
really, really liked it. He was shocked by how good it was. He does have some very interesting commentary and thoughts on it, especially with in regards to some of the like politics, but also like stuff like Kyoshi. He's only seen the Avatar show. I have read the Kyoshi novels. They're pretty good, I'd say.
Yeah, I've heard good things about them. I just haven't had like the opportunity. And I have mixed feelings about like all the spin-off stuff, but we'll get into that.
That's totally fair. Yeah. And I think it's worthwhile to kind of appreciate something you really like. I think it is like worthwhile to examine maybe some aspects that weren't as critically like talked about back in the day when it comes to Avatar. Would you like to give kind of your quick general thoughts on Avatar?
Yeah, I think Avatar The Last Airbender was like lightning in a bottle. I think a lot of people forget that at that time period, anime was still pretty niche and that a lot of people didn't really take it as seriously. And it was mostly relegated to like Toonami, and it was seen synonymously with like Sailor Moon, Yu-Gi-Oh, and Dragon Ball. And like if you were highbrow, you liked Cowboy Bebop and Miyazaki, but which was obviously very good. But there definitely was a divide about like the anime style. I think only like the Teen Titans animated series really integrated in a way that was super successful at that time. So Avatar was really trailblazing in being a show that really well combined Western sensibilities and also the Eastern influences. And I loved it. I was like 14 when I started getting into the show as it was airing. I caught up on season 1 and then I watched season 2 as it aired. And I've always loved the show. I was very invested. It's one of my first fandoms growing up, and I very much was invested in everything. I liked Zutara from the beginning. And I found that starting in book 3 is when I became slightly more critical of the show, because I wasn't just kind of like binge watching it. And I still ended up really loving it. I still think it's one of the best animated shows of its generation. But as it tried to expand and add on to the lore with the comics, I just found them to just kind of be moving further and further away from like a really solid story, because part of what makes Avatar work is the simplicity of they have to destroy the bad guy. And when you're trying to add more politics into that, more world building has to happen. And because then you have to kind of do things on the back end as well, it sort of muddies the waters. And I think also when you have a show, like I feel this way about Star Wars as well. If you are primarily told through one medium, people should be able to get the majority of the story from that medium. And if they want to find supplementary material to get more insights, that's fine. But the show should be able to stand on its own. And I think then when you have Korra come out, and so much of understanding Korra, you have to read those comics, and most of those comics, in my opinion, are not that good. It sort of makes it even more frustrating. And I think also when you retrospect about Avatar The Last Airbender, you know, the creators get a lot of praise for it, but I think people forget that Avatar The Last Airbender was a collaboration, that there were other writers involved, and it was, in my mind, lightning in a bottle. Like, I think the reason why it hasn't been as successful in any other format is because there was just something special about that team at that time in that moment. And we just have so many more options now to compare it to, that I think when people are now having these political conversations, they can go look at something like Steven Universe, Adventure Time, She-Ra, and all these other shows that are taking from Avatar, but also being able to go further.
Yeah. You brought up Avatar simplicity because, it kind of has like a JRPG plot of, well, it did play lip service to politics. It would occasionally like make allusions to that kind of stuff. It was done in a way that was like for Y7. Like, older kids could appreciate it, but it's like, this is mostly like a very simplified version, which is good and fine. Like, that's a good introduction to it. But as we kind of talked about with Korra was meant for like an older audience for the most part.
Teens, for sure,
And it was marketed a lot darker and a lot more commentary on politics. I think that's where you see the creators kind of like blind spots coming a bit more to a degree. And I think like I don't want people to not write politics in cartoons, even cartoons for kids. Absolutely go for it. But I do think there is a level of maybe you're trying to grasp something. And this was also like, God, it was very 2012, like kind of, or no, 2014, which is like that level of there might be some limitations in your knowledge based off like maybe your history or maybe where you grew up, and like of course you can learn more, but when you're trying to like, I think someone, this was a tweet my friend shared with me of like, when you try to have commentary on everything, you get a show like Glee. And like not even like it's a hateful thing, but it's like Glee does not have the greatest commentary.
The range.
Yeah, of course. And I do think we will talk about it later, but I do think there are anime and both cartoon series, some that came out around a similar time as Avatar, that are able to do similar commentary, and I think does it a lot more detailed, if I'm going to be honest.
Yeah, I think like I always talk about like, and I don't mean this in a dismissive way, but I think for some people, Avatar was their first show that ever did those things. And it's like, for me, it's like that to me was Gargoyles. You know, Gargoyles was definitely like the show that was like this is for kids, but it's also got these adult themes, and it is building this broader universe. It has genocide, it has discrimination, you know, someone gets shot, takes place in New York. So that to me was already like an introduction. And I think that if you are familiar with sort of like shonen and like the shonen genre, like a lot of things in Avatar are not inherently new, but they are new in that format for that audience at that time, because not everybody was watching anime or saw it as something that was like worthwhile to watch.
We didn't have as many like linear storytelling kind of cartoons back in the day. Now we have a lot of those. We have a lot more. Which like I like a lot of these shows, by the way. But it's like older cartoons when they were political. It's funny you brought up She-Ra. I've only seen, when it comes to She-Ra, I've only seen the 80s show.
Oh, really? Yeah. She-Ra and Prince Power is good.
Yeah, but it's like, those cartoons did have political messages, but it's that thing of just like, it was mostly like, we're going to do, because it's so episodic, it would do like, here's our message about pollution, here's our message about
Captain Planet.
Captain Planet. Here's our message about capitalism, here's our message about like being the bad boss and stuff like that. Avatar was like, okay, we're going to have characters and arcs that are going to be a bit longer and more detailed. And we get to see a few characters that I think have a very interesting kind of like reflection in the fandom now to a degree. And it's three. I think I know which the ones I'm talking about. It's Iroh, Jet, and Hanma. And it's important to note that with Avatar, it was a show that was like, each like it does mix and blend a lot of cultures for each of its respective like lore and nation. There is, first of all, it is an American production by American writers, but there is also a main like top culture that when it comes to each of these. Fire Nation, it's Japan. Air Nation, it's Tibetan. Monks, it's Tibet. Earth Nation is mostly China for the most
Earth Kingdom
part.
Is definitely mostly China.
Sorry, Earth Kingdom's mostly China, and Water Tribe is Inuit / American Indian to a degree. In some, it's mostly Inuit, but it's like it's a bit more mixed. It's like
a little bit of Sami, but not in that same kind of way. But in like there are certain overlaps too. I think.
Totally, and that happens in a lot of shows. To be fair, a lot of fantasy lore. It's a great way to do it. But there's also like aspects of like possibly a combination of both like the American creators as well as like how we talk about some of these cultural backgrounds when it comes to certain events. Because like Avatar does take inspiration from a degree with World War II and the Sino War, especially with the Fire Nation and the colonies.
Yeah, for sure.
And funny enough, I had a weird introduction to that because I got to read, I was in middle school. I don't know why this book was in the middle school library for some reason. It was a book detailing about Japan's invasion of China.
The Rape of Nanking by Ira Chang.
Yeah, which is like, that's a bit too much for a middle schooler to read.
It's an excellent book, but that'll fuck you up if you're a teenager when you read it.
It's just like, this is a neat book. It's like, I think I like forgot how to it's the one book that I read that I think I felt sick after.
Yeah, same. If you don't have to put it down and be like, that was a lot during it, you're not reading it properly.
Yeah, and like I think this is like, let's get this big guy out of the way. Iroh's a big character to talk about. His reflection in the fandom, I think, is interesting because there are some fans who think like any criticism of Iroh or how his arc is handled is like heresy and like you hate the show or you don't understand him. I think Iroh's a really good character for the most part. Of course, played by the legendary Mako Uematsu. Who passed away? Passed away between 92 when he was like 92-ish. But the way the show handles Iroh, I think is a bit like reflective of maybe its stance of politics. I think this is even expanded upon in the comics. And I think an interesting thing that a lot of fans kind of forget, that even I forgot until I rewatched it, we partially get because Mako Uematsu was like 80-ish when he played Iroh. Iroh was like 50. Iroh's not that old. And
he just looks that way.
Yeah, he just Larry Larry David kind of look. And it's just that thing of just like, when you put in time how much like when you put in like the timeline of how much time has passed in Avatar, Iroh, it hasn't been that long since Iroh was burning down villages in the Earth Kingdom. Yeah.
I think that's kind of the thing about Iroh that's interesting is like, you wonder like, when did he join the White Lotus? Like, why, you know, like, because in the first season he's very clearly aligned with the Fire Nation, like, so it's like, at what point does he boom flip it? And it's just that kind of thing that if you just watch the show and you just have the show, okay, but then it's like, then you have Republic City and there's an added influence of like, okay, so like you like maintain these colonies in the Earth Kingdom, or just we're like, oh, and you get to just share it now. And like, there is sort of this idea of like, if you are going to expand and be like very clear about the post-war politics, like Iroh's a war criminal by like any metric. And so it's like, the fact that he's just going to have a tea shop in Ba Sing Se is like very weird. You know, it's like Nazi scientists, like almost of like, oh yeah, just come here and help us do NASA so we can beat the Russians. It's like, but again, they don't really want you to think about it that much, because then, you know, one of the most famous episodes and one of the most compelling is, you know, Iroh's tale in the Tales of Ba Sing Se, and like, that his rendition of that song is like so powerful. And it's like, but then if you think about the context, he's singing about his son that died in a military occupational battle of a nation that they're currently in, because he died during the war. And so it's like a whole thing of like, where is the line and how seriously are we supposed to think about this?
It's also the fact of like, there are like still probably people alive that would recognize Iroh.
Oh, absolutely.
They occasionally pop up in the comic, and when they do, it's like kind of comedic, and like I guess that's the only way you can portray it without like kind of like without the fandom thinking like, I can't believe you're trying to ruin Iroh or something like that, because like they're usually like over the top mad and stuff like that. Like they're portrayed by like the art and the panel as like being in the wrong with how like over like the top emotional and angry they are. But I do always admire a series that's willing to kind of like show characters in the military, and like this also does kind of speak to the year Avatar came out, of like maybe not portray the military as idealistic as you would think, or as honorable. It's like people can't get into it for like maybe like an idealized reason they have in their head. I say that as someone with a gigantic military family. It's mostly money or immigration status, but it's that thing of just like, there is an aspect of like, when you portray like everyone in the military is like honorable and stuff like that, it's like, okay, but then you have to think about like, because they mention like both by name and like in existence, there are multiple Fire Nation colonies all around the Earth Kingdom, and we see kidnapping of people by the Fire Nation when we were talking about like the Southern Raiders and stuff like that. And it's that aspect of, it's like, okay, but if like, I'm not saying that like people like don't like have motions or like don't have any feelings. They do. But it's that like, it's like, but where are they at? What are they doing? How are the people who are like being burnt by them feeling? And
I think that's part of why like not to dip a toe into the shipping politics, but it's why when people give these like imaginary like feelings to the gang in terms of like pairing them with Zuko and whatever pairing it is, I'm just like, the show doesn't do that. Like, if that was the case, then Katara would have never offered to like heal Iroh in book 2, when he had done nothing to like earn that sort of help. Like, you know what I mean? And so it's like, I think one of the issues with talking about Avatar is that there are people who really view the show as like a lot more radical than it is. And it's still radical enough. Like, it still is, you know, anti-colonialism, anti-imperialism, but it's like, it's anti that at the highest tier. it doesn't really get like the nuances of that, which is why Jet and Hama end up becoming, especially nowadays, these characters that people feel a lot more complicated about than they did when they probably first watched it.
It's anti-establishment as it can be, as premiered on a Nickelodeon show for children to a degree.
You know.
Yeah, I think that with also just like I wrote in general, I think it's also like why a character like Zuko does get off easier in the show and by the fandom to a degree, because like I do get like there's kind of a joke now in the fandom like portraying the gang as like super hating Zuko, but it's just like when you do like Zuko has kind of the out of like he was 13 when he left, like around that time, but he's still like, I think that's something I have kind of realized as an adult that's kind of been funny when I do ever rewatch Avatar. It's like, oh, these are babies. These are baby children, super
babies. Like it's like the idea that they all are gonna get married and it's like you guys are 10 years old. Like
or like the serpent's past. It's like I get that was like a different time in universe. And Katara's like, I'll help give the babies. Like, no, you are not. You are going back there, Dad. You go over there and you help the woman give birth. I'm an adult. It's like the fantasy does work more. But then when we kind of get to Korra, that is trying to get more politically savvy and more like on the nose. And we still have Iroh and how characters talk about Iroh, but the other Fire Nation characters. It creates this kind of weird vacuum of like still almost kind of like having the same morality to a degree, which is why I don't think a lot of Korra's politics hit super well for the most parts. I do think some do, to be fair, but it's also that aspect of it's like I think with Korra, I like it more than most, and I think it's like also the aspect of like I admire for like the big swings it took for the most part, just especially at the end with the whole Korasabi thing.
I think like books 3 and 4 are definitely better, but I really detest books 1 and 2 of Korra. I just think that they're just so clumsy, and I think if anything, there is a little bit. It happened at like the Obama era. You know what I mean? Like we didn't know how bad it was gonna get, but like it's still this optimism. But even during the Obama era, there were still issues of police brutality, and I think like. If you watched Korra as it was airing, you were like a teenager, and like adult teenager. And I'd been in school. I knew more about colonialism from like my reading and from courses. And so like the first time I saw that there was a statue of Zuko, I was like, that's weird. Like, especially because the time jump is so short in the scope of the world.
Yeah.
Like and what, it's like,
years?
It's more than that, but it's like, it's old. It's long enough that that Aang's children and grandchildren are present characters. And I'm like, if they really wanted to separate Korra from like the gang influence, then it should have been hundreds of years in the future. I think it's too soon. And it's like, if there's a statue of Zuko like 300 years from now, okay. But like to have a statue of someone who like on a land that he once occupied through an imperial force, it's like, it's weird. And I don't think they really thought that through, which is very much the case with a lot of things that happen in.
And for it to be so respected in universe, I think it's
and then Iroh 2 coming in, and it's like, I don't know, I wouldn't name my son Iroh 2, but my grandson Iroh 2. It's just a lot of things that are like for the nostalgia of it. And it's fine. Like it is a TV show. It is a cartoon. I think the problem is that the fandom itself is like, we demand to be taken seriously. and it's like, well, if you want to be taken seriously, then we have to talk about this seriously. And that's when it kind of all becomes brr.
Yeah. I wasn't actually planning on bringing this up because I do have some shows and movies I was planning on bringing up in comparison to Avatar. But I think also like the time jump thing is interesting because have you seen Kingdom of the Planet of the Apes?
Yes, did not like it. Very disappointed. Ooh. I rewatched. So before that movie came out, I rewatched the Planet of the Apes trilogy, and I love it. I think I love it too. I think it's like almost pitch perfect. But the thing is that I found myself the whole time. My boyfriend at the time and we got out of the movie. And we were both like, I miss Caesar. Like I miss Caesar, and like I do think that it like it's an interesting look about like how they think about Caesar in
Yeah.
this distant future. Like that's all interesting, but I think I was missing that emotional connection to
Yeah.
that character.
That's true. Caesar, Andy Serkis' Caesar is so good, but it's like I do find it so interesting that like so many characters have such an idea of Caesar, but because we the audience have seen Caesar as a person, both the idealized version and like the more terrifying like God version that Proximus has in his head,
Yeah,
they're both wrong, and that's
Yeah.
such an interesting choice that I love that they made. But that's also a great show that deals with more the trilogy is a great like
Yeah.
showing of like complexities of like war, like the nuances of characters. It's definitely a more adult movie series than Avatar, but yeah, it's like some fans were mad about this in the live action show. I didn't mind it for the most part. If anything, I kind of wish it went a bit further. When because you remember in season 1, in the old show when Iroh gets captured by those
and the people that in the live action, I did see this clip, is like they talk about the siege and how they remember him. I thought that was really well done. I also liked the fact that the ship that Zuko is on is made up of the people that he tried to save, that he worked to go save. That's why the Agni Kai happened. I thought that was also a really good change.
Yeah, I think half like the ideas for the live action show season 1, because that's just what I've seen, are brilliant but kind of poorly executed, and the other half are just like it just feels like a fan took over. A fan.
It's hard, because I think I feel this way. Like I love animation. I'm precious about it. I just don't think Avatar works in live action. Bending looks really dumb. Like
it looks weird.
Bending looks, if it's not going to be like a Marvel level budget, it's not going to look good. It just, and everything looks very washed out, which is the Netflix look. And it's just like, One Piece is like the exception. It is not the rule,
I think I should not laugh when I see Katara's mom get roasted by a Fire Nation soldier with how fast that fire is animated. It's like, whoa, in live action, that looks insane. But yeah, it's also, even in the cartoon, they do have some issues of like time passing forward, because it's funny, if you ever binge Avatar, you can hear Aang's voice actor just drop, just like puberty wise. It's like, like less than a year has taken place in the original book series, but in real life, it's been like what, 5 years? It's just like, hi, I'm Aang, Katara. I have to defeat the Fire Lord. I am a man now.
It's like 3 months, and I think that's also the thing that's so funny is like I thank God that I grew out of like a power scale mentality when I was 17 years old, but like but it's like Qatar becomes like a waterbending master in like 3 business days, and it's just this is not a serious art form. Like it, and it's one of those things where like you can suspend disbelief in animation in a way that is easier than if you do it in live action. And I think a lot of those I just saw one of the comments about the war criminal thing.
That's an old one.
Oh yeah, a siege is definitely a war crime. People die during sieges, but I understand why, because they do edge away from that kind of violence. Like you're not asked to sit with it, because if you're asked to sit with it, then you can't enjoy the show, and you can't enjoy the way it's concluded, because to a big part of it, someone made this point just with like Game of Thrones, but like we know monarchy is bad. Like monarchy is an unfair thing, but in narratives like this, becoming the Fire Lord is about Zuko self-actualizing. It's about his story being complete and him leading in a new era. But it de facto does mean that he is going to be running an imperial center that is going to be in decline.
It's like why George R. R. Martin wanted to make A Song of Ice and Fire. He's like, he still loves Lord of the Rings, but he's like, I wanted to explore what it meant to be a good leader, and like the politics and like the decisions that go into making it. It's like, that's why the people's reaction in those books is so much more important. And it does kind of suck that the show just kind of power scaled evilness to a degree, which is why I think characters like Ramsay fall flat in the show. But with that, this is a discussion of that. Just, but to move on to like the other big character, this one, I think like we have seen him in live action as well. Jet is a very like contentious character in the fandom now, and like he's a character that kind of gets talked over to a degree, because he's mostly used for kind of in the story, he is used as like almost a romantic foil to a degree, or like almost like just to Katara, which is interesting. It's kind of weird that Aang doesn't get mad there, but just
don't bring that up to people.
Sorry, but so Jet's introduced him and his like group of like little ragamuffin boys, the freedom fighters. They're all in trees, and like the gang finds out that, like, oh, they're also fighting the Fire Nation, and they took to the trees and all that stuff because the Fire Nation came and they burnt their village and I think killed all their parents.
Yes.
And it's revealed by the end of the episode, Jet was planning on drowning the village of the Fire Nation, and he's stopped by Sokka. And he appears a few more
jealous
times.
And it's like a whole jealousy plot with that too, which is weird.
Which was very popular in the 2000s, to be fair. But and like that's another thing of just like when it kind of like what you mentioned earlier when it comes to the radicalization of like how the fandom tries to treat it as like the most radicalized show, radicalized cartoon at all. Jet is unanimously he's completely portrayed as being in the wrong in that episode. He is the villain in there. He has sympathy, but he's the villain. And that's kind of a like you made a TikTok video about this briefly.
I did. Yeah.
About the old man who was going for a walk and Jet was about to kill him. And he gets stopped by Sokka. It's like, why is that old man there? But also, it's important we don't really get the politics of that old man when it comes to like kind of like settler a mindset.
Yeah. Yeah, and I think all of it, I think a huge part of it is, the genocide happening in Gaza. And like people are now really having to like sit with the reality of these things that were used so commonly in fandom politics. I mean, this is also why in the Hunger Games, Gale is also such a controversial character, because it's like there are people who have like zero empathy for him, and it's just like he lives in an open prison, like he like there is this idea. And I think we also got tired of this with Marvel, where they would have a character who would have a political opinion that was actually very valid and real, but then they'll kill an old lady or like blow up a factory, and it's like we cannot be on their side anymore. And I think people just kind of got really sick of that sort of storytelling and how like conservative fundamentally it is, and that if you're going to bring up these things, you can't just have the status quo be like the solution. And with Jet, again, he's obviously wrong. Like that's not in contention, but how he got there is like completely like circumvented, because it's just supposed to be like, well, Sokka and Katara aren't that way. And it's like, well, that's Sokka and Katara. Like they have a totally like, and also I think what people kind of miss is that like, if you think about how the world building works, the Fire Nation and the Earth Kingdom has been under constant siege by the Earth Kingdom for so many years, for 100 years. Like, yes, there have been raids on the Water Tribe and the Southern Water Tribe, not even really the North, but that's a totally different experience than the constant bombardment of occupation that's happening in the Earth Kingdom. They have totally different experiences, and trying to collapse that into like one universal experience is just like not how things work. And it just sort of makes it so that like we are just supposed to ignore. And I think the series does this constantly, is like the average Fire Nation citizen is not supposed to be seen at all as responsible for what the Fire Nation is doing, but they will not do anything to stop it. Like there is we rarely see Fire Nation citizens that are like going against the grain. We don't really have an overall Fire Nation resistance. There are maybe like 4 characters from the Fire Nation that we see were like like it's Zhang Zhang, Piandao, the guy who works with Zhang Zhang, and the one Fire Nation priest that helps them get to Sojin.
Oh yeah. But he's even portrayed as being more on the Avatar side than just
he believes in his duty to the Avatar over the nation. And so it's like we don't really see the Fire Nation citizen being that great. And I think like we have empathy for them. We know they're not totally responsible, but they also are not challenging anything. And so they're passive. It's like what is that thing called? The apathy of evil is still present.
Zone of interest kind of thing.
Yeah, but it's like, but that's never called out, because we're just supposed to see them as totally innocent.
Yeah. It's like if it did show more political kind of like divide in the key. That's another thing that I think is like has come up a lot more lately when it comes to portraying fascist regimes in pop culture. A lot of fascist regimes like while they may have like some loyal subjects to a degree, a lot of these are just built on sand for the most part of just like political power and fear and just like intimidation. And it's like a lot like it is a bit different when you do take by what Fire Nation is drawing influence from, but it's like you could have shown us just like a bunch of like people in the Fire Nation just like I don't like who
protesting
protesting or just being like oh yeah, those Fire Nation like idiot soldiers are just running around, like they give it to anyone because like but yeah, it's that thing of like when you portray someone, they're people, but it's like but people are capable of atrocious things. I think is important to note. I think a very interesting character to compare to Jet and to a degree Hanma is, and just like the arc in general, it's a bit different, but I think it's an interesting comparison, is in One Piece, there's the character Fisher Tiger. Have you ever read or watched One Piece?
I have not, but I know a lot about it. All of my friends are into One Piece. Like it's like I'm surrounded on all. I've been waiting for it to end for 12 years so I can catch up.
You just gotta like take 1 month off of everything and just read. Sorry, I know. Just stop doing everything. Yeah, but in One Piece, like it is kind of similar to Avatar because it will mix and match cultures to a degree, and like a lot of fantasy stories, every now and then you will have an idealized like royal figure. But what's important in One Piece is that while it does portray the Marines and the world government as being people and nuance, there is always infighting in the world government and the Marines. But also, very importantly, with a character like Fisher Tiger, who's portrayed far more radical than Jet, mind you, he is like actually killing people in the world government. And like he even still has his prejudice when he dies, like his hatred towards the world government and humans. He's not portrayed in the wrong. He's not portrayed in the wrong for feeling this way, but he's also not ever portrayed in the wrong for his actions. We do see other fishmen in One Piece who are like criminals, but they're it's not so much they're because this way because they let hate consume their heart. It's usually like different circumstances. It's like there's a lot more, and to a degree with One Piece, it's a little older audience wise. So it is able to talk a bit more about more complex politics in comparison to Avatar. But I think it's like worthwhile to bring it up because it did premiere in a similar time as Avatar. It's just like it's like political ideology has gotten a lot more. I think it's a lot more focused than like when you compare it to Avatar for the most part, because Avatar is definitely more of like, you could almost like make it a fantasy movie for kids to a degree.
It's an adventure story. It's like, No, I've heard a lot about this, like these aspects of One Piece, and I find them to be really interesting. I mean, it is a show about piracy, and pirates are inherently a radical subject matter. And so I think it just speaks to the way in which like there are so many ways to tackle this issue, and Avatar, the closest they ever got was like Amon, you know?
A little,
like Amon a little bit, but then they make him a bender, and it's like he's a hypocrite. It's like, you're anti-capitalist, but you engage in capitalism. You know, it's like, Marx owned a business kind of thing. It's like it felt very much like that kind of thing, and I'm like, I get it, guys, I get it. Like,
it's interesting that you bring up Marx, but it's like in real life, Karl Marx was a wealthy man. He still stood by all his beliefs. Like he was still like a radical. Like, and that's kind of tough to talk about because I think it's like, I'm not sure if this is fair. I'm not trying to like psychoanalyze them, but when you kind of condition yourself to make like a fantasy show to a degree, and you made Avatar, it was a kid's show, making that leap to darker, more mature politics can kind of be a rough thing. And I think they might have just still have been in like the Avatar mindset for the most part. It's also that thing of just like every like non-bender against the Korra group, the Krura, as I'm calling them now, which they're portrayed as like kind of being like comedically in the wrong, and like literally the first guy we meet has like a big megaphone sign just screaming like down with the Avatar and the establishment. He's portrayed like almost like a hippie to
like a Fox News pundit kind of
liberal non-bender poem.
Exactly.
Avatar with fact. It's also that thing of just like, and he, like this is going a bit further. It's just like I do like that Korosami got together, but like I do think you kind of see like the difficulties of the writers of like Korra and Asami are both extremely privileged, and like Korra being the Avatar, basically a religious figure at this point, and Asami being the daughter of like this giant rich CEO. And
Mm-hmm.
it's like it is kind of weird that they do get together, like the two biggest political forces, and then use just like, oh, where's Mako and Bolin, the two homeless people we met earlier?
Yeah.
Just like
They're like, fuck it, you know?
yeah. It's like I don't think Mako and Bolin are super strong characters, but it's like they do kind of just like it's like, oh yeah, they were homeless. It's like, oh, we're just brushing over that.
Yeah,
like,
there's a lot of things, and I think one of the aspects, because when I did a video about sort of like why people, like, is Korra the victim of like misogyny, and it's like to a degree, yes,
yeah.
but I think what's also interesting is that the writers, when they talk about it, they just show a lack of understanding, because they're like, people love our strong female characters, and I'm like, they're all supporting like someone else. Like even Katara, who I love, it's like she is the main love interest. Like it's very different when she's also like Aang's best friend and love interest versus like if she were like the Avatar herself. People would definitely dislike her more. But I also think when they talked about it, they talked about how, they were really inspired by like Miyazaki movies and Princess Mononoke, about how there isn't a very clear hero antagonist kind of line. And it's like, but Korra's the Avatar.
Yeah.
So like she's got to be right, unless you're going to make it a very different show. And it's like, and they're not going to do that. And it's like, you can't have the kind of nuance that you want to have if the Avatar is ultimately going to be an infallible character.
Yeah, when it's the world
morally.
When it's essentially like Korra's also supporting the government to a degree. I'm not saying you can't have that with characters. You can occasionally, but when it's just like this show, what's been framed, what's been presented, there's definitely a weird element when it comes to like Korra. It's kind of like the whole like depending on how a writer will tackle a character like Bruce Wayne or something. It's just like it can tackle it very well. And other times it's just like when writers come almost like kind of refuse to acknowledge aspects of like Bruce and Batman, like what are some of the red flags and how can other characters view him as like potentially like an issue. I think that will be a problem because it's just like everyone who doesn't like them is in the wrong 1000%. It's like I'm not quite sure about that. Just
exactly.
Yeah, or just like portray him as like comedically over the top act. It was funny. I did watch the Heart of Ice, the first episode of Mr. Freeze and the Batman.
That's a great episode. Great episode. I mean, that is a show that really respected children's intellect.
Yeah, it is funny when I did watch it. The guy who's the villain in that, who like kills, who's basically the reason Nora's dead, is like he's getting humanitarian awards. Just like, oh, times have not changed.
Yeah. It's very much interesting.
yeah. Or like, oh my god, I love this show and book series and movie series. But like, have you ever watched the old Disney Zorro?
No, I haven't. That's
great. But I totally forgot the first episode. One of the characters calls Don Diego out when he comes back to America from space. Just like things are not unpleasant. Indian children are being taken from their parents. People are being forced to labor camps. I'm like, wow, Disney had this in like the 60s. Just like I forgot about that. The Zorro books are shockingly radical.
I think it's often funny how certain genres and certain subjects become sort of like assimilated into the monoculture and they become conservative by proxy, because it's like Star Trek is a very radical show. Conservatives love Star Trek though because they just see the military propaganda and they're like, excellent. Like, we've got the humanoids doing everything to keep those non-humanoids in check, and it's like oh no, that's not the point of the show.
Or like when you have like a group like the Rat Pack, it's just like conservatives love the Rat Pack. It's like those were like 4 bisexual men who were like all sleeping with each other, and they were like anti-racism. Frank Sinatra very famously would like threaten to burn down like warehouses that would not play like to like non-segregated audiences. Like these were very
did anti-racist PSAs like on the regular. But again, it's like I know so many conservatives that love Willie Nelson, the most hippie guy ever, and I'm like, you love Willie Nelson, but you would put him in jail, like
Johnny Cash.
Exactly.
Yeah, it's just like no, Johnny Cash has multiple songs about how he'll shoot a cop. Just like but and it's just like I think Avatar was at an interesting cultural zeitgeist because it was the 2000s. It was such because they were also influenced by anime and like other cartoons as well. And it like kind of created this interesting like aspect of like maybe some like almost like an empty spray can, that just like some internal conservatism of just like 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 American values to a degree, like the more leaning conservative values. Just and I think we also see this very unfortunately with. I think this is a good episode, but in the context of the whole show and Korra and real life, it's very strange. Hanma in the Bloodbender episode.
Yeah. It's such a strange episode. And even when I first saw it, I had a lot of really negative feelings about it, and I was much younger then. But I always rooted for Magneto, and I always rooted for Demona. And so I was always like, no, if you face injustice, like, you should not have to just take it and be like, I want to rise above it. I get how, like, as an individual, you don't want to just automatically go pew pew. But in my fictional worlds, I was like, I remember, sorry for this like tangent, but like, I remember watching the first X-Men movie. And like Magneto's whole thing in that movie is like, I want to destroy all the humans because of what they did to me. I remember turning to my mom and I was like, I get it. Like, I was like, we deserve it. I was always like that kind of person. And so like when I was hearing Hama's backstory, I'm like, you know what? Hell yeah. And it's like, is it objectively, like, is it correct? No. Do I get it? Yes. Like, because like, can you imagine the things that she would have had to experience in a Fire Nation prison camp? Like things that aren't even implied, but if you know anything about a prison camp, you know, like Abu Ghraib, you know what I mean? Like, these are all things, like, she's seen horrible things, and no Fire Nation citizen ever helped her. So I don't know. So again, it's this whole idea of like, Katara's like, you can't hurt these innocent people, and I'm like, you're giving them an innocence that they would never give you. They would they see you as inherently lesser than them because that's what they've been taught to do. And I just feel like it's all about, you know, Katara getting this power that she doesn't feel comfortable with, and I think how it's handled is very traumatic. But I also feel like Hama's trauma is meant to be like, yes, she went to this terrible thing, but she went too far. And I'm like, yeah, she was broken.
If Hama was like a spirit to a degree, like a supernatural character, or like, oh, there's this water tribe spirit that's over here, and it can like, it's teaching Katara and all that stuff. Like, I think that would work better because it's just like, oh, that you don't have the political implications of being in a prison camp, of being taken from your home. And it's just like her, like, just going around kidnapping people with, I guess, just the goal to kill them. They don't fully explain what she was going to do later. Just like, they're just here now, and they're all alive. But that's very strange. I'm sure have you seen the show? I'm sure you have. Full Metal Alchemist.
Oh yeah, my tattoo is half inspired by Full Metal Alchemist. I love that. I mean, talk about a radical show. The fact I think I made this comparison on TikTok. The fact that Roy Mustang is like, my goal is to get high enough in politics so that I can try my own self for war crimes.
Yeah,
Zuko could never.
Yeah, but there's a character in Full Metal Alchemist. I forget who he is. He's an older guy. He worked for the Ishvalian army. And he created an alchemy that was used to wipe out like a bunch of Scar's people.
Yeah.
White guy, I think it was Ice or something. I don't quite remember. But and I like how in the show, Scar is never portrayed as in the wrong for his hatred. He's never portrayed in the wrong or like why he is the way he is. And I do feel like if Scar was an Avatar, he would be a bad guy of the week kind of character that you would have to defeat. But in Avatar, Full Metal Alchemist, he keeps on coming back. He's an important character. His relationship to his people, his culture are very important. Also, what's very important, which I think is like something a lot of like fantasy writers have issue with, or even just sci-fi writers, when you create a fictional race or fictional group or species, and you give them supernatural abilities and magic, and like you have that as to be the reason why there was the genocide, that's kind of an issue. With Scar, his people just have like red eyes. They're not magic. They don't do anything. They're just red eyes. It's just and like that is such an important detail because if it was like actually they shoot lasers from their eyes, it's like okay, well then the prejudice would be a bit more warranted. Just
yeah, and I think they also find a way to. I think Winry as well, like Winry and Scar's meeting is so parallel to Katara and the thing because Scar killed Winry's parents by accident. He does very much try to only target state military. Like he definitely tries to target, but Winry has to have such an empathetic moment and go through so much growth to like be in a place where like she could kill him but chooses not to.
Yeah.
And I found that moment to be so powerful. And not like, and here's the thing, do I understand in a children's show the moralization of don't kill?
Of course.
Yes, of course. But I do hate that people then treat it as if Katara did kill him, that she would be just as bad. I'm like, that's absurd.
Yeah.
I think when people take it to that level and they use it, and I think there's this way in which Katara is perceived by the fandom where like, if she's not totally 100% good 100% of the time, that she's not a good character. And I'm like, that's unfair and a very shitty standard to put onto like a female character.
I got into a weird fight saying I think Katara is the best character in the game. That escalated a lot quicker than I thought, and they brought like Toph a lot more because like
Toph is barely a character.
Toph is that was actually the point, because they were talking about like details and growth and stuff like that. I'm like, Toph is entirely static and she is almost entirely on the game side. That's not a bad thing. She's a supporting character. That's fine. But Toph is completely static as a character. And also my hot take is that it doesn't not make sense for Toph to become a cop, which you can solve. That's my radical take.
I mean, it's very of the era, but it is funny when I do try to talk to people about like Avatar and like how I view the characters. It's like Toph is so static. It is really interesting how after she joins in like the first couple of episodes where she's kind of mean to Aang, but then she gets better, and then it's like that's it. She gets to be a metal bender and it's over. And it's similar to Katara in a sense. Like I think, just for context, because I don't want anyone to yell at me, but like in the 2000s, in this era, if you had like a female member of a team, she was always the less powerful and less fully developed character. And so the fact that Katara wasn't that was a very radical thing and very rare at the time. Like, especially even if you watched anime, like your Sakuras, you know, your Hinatas were like, so in that sense, I don't want to take anything away from Katara. However, after book 1, she has very little growth as a character until like book 3, where she has to deal with like her anger at Zuko, her frustration with her father, and then dealing with the Southern Raider episode. But she doesn't really have to change anymore after she gets to become a waterbender, because she just maintains being the heart of the group. She and Toph have a little bit of friction between them because they're both the girls, so they have to have one episode where they just like scrap it out because one's a girly girl, one's a tomboy, so they have to clash for like 5 seconds. But she doesn't have that much to do for like the most of the rest of the series because her story is kind of done.
Yeah, that's fair. I like her a lot in season 2, but mainly because like I kind of view her as like almost kind of weirdly becoming the unofficial leader of Team Avatar.
I think when I say that, people think I'm saying that she's bad. Like, I'm not saying it's a bad thing, but I am saying that like she is then like very strong, solid character, and that's just kind of how she is the rest of the time. She's very competent. She's got good instincts. She's just fully cooked by that point, and we don't really have to do anything else with her. That
like her as a character, she has less big radical change moments. I think I'm also trying to think of like if the show took place in a more social media present time, would they react to Katara's rage towards Zuko as well as they did back in the day? Because she's mad for like a good few episodes, which I really like.
And she deserves it.
Totally.
I absolutely. She tried to give him her sacred water. But I will say, Katara was very disliked, like, as the show was airing. I think, like, now people really enjoy her. But, like, the early... And I didn't even like her on it. I'll say it. I really did not always like Katara because I was power scale pilled. And I did not understand how she was only a real bender, you know, a trained bender for, like, a month and a half, and now she's able to like go to toe with like Azula, who's a prodigy, been bending her whole life. Like, what are the standards of this art form? But that's stupid because it's not really about the fighting; it's about the storyline. But I grew out of that very quickly. But like, people really did not like Katara. They took her softness for weakness. That's why everyone really loved Toph, because she's like a tomboy and she's feisty and she's funny, and like people, especially at that time period, will prefer that to the girlier character. And so I think that Katara being mean to Zuko was always like one of my favorite things about her, but it was one of those things that was very polarizing.
Okay.
Yeah.
I wasn't super online until
unfortunately I was.
Yeah, no, I did not get online until like my last year of high school, which was interesting for me, just like when it comes to fandom stuff. But yeah, with I think when it also comes to aspects of like murdered children's shows, and this kind of becomes more of a problem when we get to Korra, but also I know you haven't read it. I have. I do like the Kyoshi books. I think they're pretty good. I would say it probably has the best romance in Avatar as well. With her I'm forgetting Kyoshi's Fire Nation girlfriend's name, Yun or something. But the thing, like, it's so weird in the Kyoshi books because, like, she does kill in that, but it's portrayed as like super, super, super self-defense to borderline manslaughter. And it does kind of feel like some of the later Avatar stuff feels like almost like a fear to go a bit further, of like we might have people dislike this character or have people like call out this character or have people get mad at this character. And like, that's why you want to keep it away from certain stuff. So it's why they kind of smooth stuff over to a degree. They kind of did this with Sokka in the live action show and maybe season 2. I don't remember, where they kind of like trimmed away some of his sexism.
Yeah. Yeah, and I thought that was like a very silly thing to do. And then I also I do try to keep one thing in mind. The adaptation is like 8 episodes long, 7 episodes long, and it's just like there are just some subplots that if he stops being sexist after the 5th episode. It's like, okay, look, then let's just keep it moving. Like, I understand. The problem is that all the interviews focus on all these really silly, minute changes, and they don't just say we only have so much time.
Yeah,
he does grow out of it very quickly for relatively to the length of the show, so we're just gonna skip it. That is a better answer than we didn't want to do it. Like, why would just say for economy of time we're not gonna do that storyline.
Yeah, I think also the show and some of I think this is such a thing that the fans and the writers to a degree forget. My friend actually brought this up, Macabre Storytelling, when we were having a chat one day he said the characters, especially Katara and Zuko and Azula to a degree, are coded much older than he would have thought. He's like, I would have thought these guys were like 17, maybe 18. Finding out they're 14 is such a big difference. And when you watch the actual TV show and you see actors who are closer to teenagers, it's like, that's gonna you're not gonna have a 16-year-old Azula who comes off super well. Just
yeah, it's one of those things where it's always funny because, again, I'm not anti-Cat Aang, but I would always tell people I was a 14-year-old girl.
Hell yeah.
Dating a 12-year-old boy, if you're a 14-year-old teenage girl, is fucking weird. Sorry to cuss. It's weird. That's a minor. And there's also he hasn't gone through puberty, and that's also the thing about the talk about Aang in the live action is obviously this kid is gonna go through puberty.
Get taller than Azula.
Yeah. It's like he's a little boy. And everyone's he's 6 foot, and it's because he's a real boy.
Yeah.
And a part of Aang's character is that kind of precocious, Peter Pan, forever young kind of thing. And if you don't have that, there's something that you lose, which is why I feel like doing it live action is just not going to work. You need them to be canonically 12, 14, 15, 16, and 14, because that's how old they're all supposed to be. And it's to see them be older or to see them as real people means that things are just going to look different. It's going to feel different. It just cannot hit the same because you can communicate certain emotions in the cartoon that you just can't do in live action.
Yeah, it's I brought this up, but it's I think you can pull off a character like Aang or Luffy. But the thing is, you can't pull it off when you're that young. No 19-year-old is going to be. You have to have be 38-year-olds Gene Wilder to pull it off. That's the comparison I make because he has the insane acting experience as well as just ability. But you need a lot more experience to pull off a character that does a big and make that seem natural. It's is this the best you can get? Yeah, and it's just I don't think you should overly criticize the actor for that, but it's just this is just the reality of I think it's something I have when I get older. It's I see 19-year-olds oh, that's still very young. All things considered.
they're kids, and I also think it's really frustrating because as Avatar has evolved, they've been trying to do better about actually having the representation behind the scenes match the characters, which, like in The Legend of Aang, they have all, not Asian and Inuit and native voice actors. And in the live action, they're all being played by actual people of color.
Well, most of them.
Yeah, Sokka, yeah, that's a whole thing. That's a whole thing. But overall, that was the goal. And so, like, when people are complaining about how, like, round Azula's face is, and I'm like,
she's 14.
Like, first of all, she's a child.
Yeah.
Second of all, like, this is like a lot of Asian people have round faces. Yeah. This is not an anime. That's not how real people look. Like, it's so weird to see like how the woo brain is like stuck in people's heads, and they don't understand how real Asian people do not look like a cartoon character. Yeah. Like, this is not a thing. And it reminds me of how, like, it's that anime mentality of like, yeah, they're Japanese, but not really. It's like, no, they're Japanese. Usagi Tsuchino is a Japanese person with blonde hair. Like, I'm sorry to tell you that. Like, Naruto, he's not a white kid. Like, their hair and their eye color are to signify character traits. They're not there to tell you their race and ethnicity, and we know this because some of them have blue hair.
Yeah, it's also that thing of just like casting for live action like that, or even just like animation to a degree, because there was a thing of like great actor and all stuff. Steven Yeun as Zuko is like, okay, but why not bring back Dante Bosco, because he is Filipino? That's still Asian, I think. A lot of people forget. And my friend, our great guy, he's Indian, and he's talked about some of his frustrations with Avatar, as well as other media that uses like Asian history and mythology and cultures. That like he gets very frustrated of the lack of Southern Asian groups being portrayed, especially like India and like the different like diversities of like India as like a country and the culture, and like especially when you do like kind of do a bit more research into aspects of China and Japan, and like how much of that history was influenced to a degree by India. It's like that's a big thing, and I do think that's totally fair with like some of the world building of Avatar and the lore.
And I do think and I've been thinking about this a lot, and I'm trying not to like let this be like my too woke opinion, but I do think it's interesting to like when you look back at like M. Night Shyamalan's The Last Airbender adaptation, which is bad. I'm not going to deny that. But one of the things he wanted to do is like make it more authentically Asian, which is why like he changed the pronunciation of certain names to make it actually closer to like how they would be. And everyone was like, no, it doesn't matter. And it's just like, but like he is Indian, and he would like no. And like, he made Zuko Indian, and like I actually saw a really
I think he's pretty good as Zuko, to be honest.
I saw like some really good fan art of like Zuko, like Indian Dave Patel Zuko, and I'm like, oh, that's actually really sick. And it's like the rebellion about that stuff was so like every time that there's a desire to put more authentic Asian voices behind the scenes, there's always a like, this isn't what I wanted. And it's like at a certain point, it's like we have to realize that like you can't want to give it every single representation point, but when it actually does bring in some representation, you're like, but I don't like it. It's like, okay, but like let the Asian actors get paid. Like this is like let them have something.
Speaking of, I think it's interesting to compare Avatar and really Iroh's treatment to a character who appears in the second Kung Fu Panda 2 movie, which is funny enough directed by an Asian woman, a Chinese woman. Lord Shen. Lord Shen is
one of the best villains of all time.
Insanely beautifully animated, but he's a complex person, and you do kind of get where he's coming from to a degree, but it still portrays him as being like totally in the wrong. He's his own worst enemy. It's just like, it would be weird if like in the next movie, I know it was co-made by like the director of the first one, so it was like half Asian, half white. But if in the third movie Shen is like spared, but then he goes to Panda Village. If Shen is spared, he's like, I'm gonna live as like a hermit way out there, like not gonna talk to anyone, because like he effectively does something very similar to Iroh. She was a Chinese woman, and there's the whole discussion of like, is this like inspired by like Imperial Japan's invasion of China as well, which I think is like it's not there, especially with like the flag he has.
I know it's one of those things where like I love those movies, and I love like Avatar. I'm just always aware that like when I'm ingesting this content and even anime that I'm viewing it from an outsider perspective. Like there are certain politics that I will not understand and like I will research them, but it's like there are like it's why like Attack on Titan is constantly a polarizing work because no one knows what it is. Is it fascist? Is it not? You know, and it's like there are things that people just don't trust because like Japan is a country that did war crimes and has not been transparent about like really making reparations and like doing that stuff. And so when you have like My Hero Academia and you have them like referencing an actual real unit, people are like rightfully turned off. And when you go ahead.
But to be fair to that like author's like credit, Horikoshi, he did like apologize for it and he removed it apparently, which I respect compared to like I've seen some other like authors in like, even just like American directors as well who are just like that would never happen with them. Just like
But all that to say is that I think that like there is a need of everyone to kind of have a little bit more humility and recognize that they are enjoying art that is inspired by something that is Asian influences, but the people behind the scenes for a lot of these things are not. And that like it's just like some things are just more complicated. Like I love the Poppy Wars, for example, by R.F. Kuang, but I also know it's very intense for people because it does very vividly align with the rape of Nanking and those war crimes. And like that's just something that like has to be handled with sensitivity and maybe shouldn't be the inspiration for a children's thing.
If someone criticizes it, it's like you can't. Your response shouldn't entirely be like, "No, you're wrong." You should listen to like their discussion on it of just like, "Hey, maybe there's kind of an issue that you might not be seeing culturally wise when it comes to this." And it's not to say there aren't like left-leaning Japanese authors and creators and artists. There totally is. There's dozens of them.
Which Hatatilia's mangaka has definitely been shown.
I gotta read that. I really hear nothing but praise.
It's really good.
But it's just like, you will occasionally get some cultural bumps to a degree. I wonder if that's also maybe part of the writing behind Avatar to a degree, because like the writers can kind of like if they were raised in China or something and they knew about more like Japan's influence and stuff like that, would they have a harsher take on the Fire Nation? Probably.
And there are people who like do admit that like part of the reason why they like have issues with Zuko is because of how closely like the Fire Nation is very clearly Japan. Like it is like an archipelago. And so like I think when you are going to make those comparisons and then it's like, but everything's going to be great now, it's like it does ring kind of like will it? And that's why I think The Promise especially is so rough for me, because I'm like, so you're telling me that these half Fire Nation, half Earth Kingdom people, that's already a thing, are like, we want to just live together forever. And it's like, where were you when Ozai was going to genocide this entire landmass? Because that was 2 weeks ago. Like, and it's like, that's what I mean about the lack of seeing anyone like usurp or revolt that's like Fire Nation. Because I'm like, you're talking about you want Zuko to like protect your rights to be in these colonies, but where were you when they were gonna blow this whole bitch up?
It is that whole thing of just like, it's like the way that, because it was a kid's show in the 2000s, you were less likely to get more like darker, maybe bittersweet endings. But it's like everyone kind of gets what they want in the original Avatar, and it's that thing of just like Zuko being like crowned Fire Prince is unanimously a good thing in that last shot of just like that's awesome, it's great, and all this stuff. And it's that thing of just like they're not going to go too much in detail into like okay, so are you going to like pull people out of the colony? Are you going to do any of that stuff? And we do see it try to like them try to reconcile with it with The Promise and Korra, but like with everyone who's against the idea of like something like the Republic City, they're almost entirely portrayed as being in the wrong. It's just like, well, can't you sympathize? It's just like, well, maybe the other person should like. You don't even have to portray it where like, oh, the Republic City doesn't get built. You can portray it as like the Republic City still gets built, and this guy is still mad about it, and rightfully so. Just like
it's a weird construction, and I haven't watched like the leaked movie, but I know that like what I've heard is that Katara apparently is like it helped build Republic City, which I think is dumb. I really struggle with like post. I think that's the other thing too, is like I think when you have a show just end, you can create different like headcanons and stuff. But every time I see Katara and Aang's relationship in anything, I'm like, I hate this.
I think it's like kind of because I'm pretty neutral on the romance in Avatar, but like I think there's both like a writer and a fan response to Zutara too, because Zutara was very, very prevalent. Like, you know, someone who's just like kind of like it's just like, I recognize that. Like I recognize a lot of art from it, but it's just like it feels like they're trying to be like, actually Aang and Katara are so great and lovely and awesome and all that kind of stuff. It's just like in the promise is like so weird because it's just like, are you like maybe 13 at the oldest right now, and she's like 15.
Sweetie, baby, and they like come back for me, sweetie. And I'm just like, guys, I don't really want to see this. Like, this is really, it's a lot. It's a lot for Elbow.
If they were like, I don't know, 18 or like 20, it's just like that's something because like
that's
the
puppy
thing love, but
it's just the thing that's so frustrating is that like Aang is 12 years old. This is the only girl he's ever hung out with, and I'm just like, because the air nomads are like gender segregated for the most part, so it's not like he grew up around a bunch of women. I'm just like, I just feel like they should date other people and then get together. Like I'm fine with them being endgame. I'm just like, you only like Katara's only kissed Jet and Aang.
You forget how like little Katara has actually left the Water Tribe to a degree.
They're babies.
It's that thing of like kind of the trope of like first girl wins kind of thing of just like the first girl that the main character meets. Presuming that they're the opposite gender, that will be their love interest until they die. Just like, it's just, it's like Aang definitely has like puppy love to a degree. It's like, it is kind of weird when you do watch the first season because that kid's voice is so light. Because I think he was 12 at the time when they filmed.
He was really little.
Yeah, and it's just, that's a whole thing. It's like you have a couple like Ed and Winry who are they know each other since childhood, and like I really like them as a couple. But it's also that thing, just like they don't get together permanently when they're 14. It's just like, and even when Ed makes his proposal at the end of the series, it's just like they're both 18, but they don't like kiss and just like, oh, we're gonna be together forever and ever. It's just it portrays that couple a bit more like realistically, like Ed's proposal as a weird thing, and we do see them get together, but as adults in a picture, which I think works a lot better. Sorry to gush about Full Metal.
No, it's okay. But even on Steven Universe, like Steven and Connie end up together, and it's when they finally kissed, it was great because I'm like, oh my goodness! But it felt like organic, like they've been fighting together, they confused, like that. It's all been implied, but they both are going on different journeys as well, so it doesn't feel like they're like this. And it's like, I just feel like Katara has an entire nation that she has to take care of. Does she have time to be in Republic City? Like, I don't like, it's one of those things where I'm like, she has other things to do. And I think that's kind of like why the politics of Avatar and everything are so big, because how do you recover after 1,000 years war that ended with a genocide, the extermination of the Southern waterbending culture, and an Earth Kingdom that has been so divided into different economic stratospheres? Like, there's a lot to do that Aang as the Avatar has to do, but that like Sokka and Katara should be doing, that Toph should be doing. Like, they don't need to all be together, actually.
It doesn't quite help that like almost every political leader that Avatar portrays like a good person, even if like they're a bit dominant and effective, they're like always born into it to a degree. Like with the Earth Kingdom, it's bad that like, you know, Lon Fane is coming in and starting to manipulate him behind the scenes. But with, it's like everyone who's like born into a like kind of like an everyday position who works their way up to top. Not to say there aren't like people who will betray and like do awful things from like the ground up. It's like that does happen in real life. But when you just portray as like the cool leaders as like, or like the people who should be the leaders as the people who are like political, people who are born into it, essentially, of like this is their right, that's going to kind of be an issue. Most fans, you can get away with it because it's like kingdom or princess or all that stuff, and just like, and it's just like the more you kind of get into like the actual politics and like the weird stuff is when it's kind of it kind of creates a weird divide to a degree. And I do think like Gen Z, millennial, I think when they write like fantasy, and I say this with love because I am part of that group, I have noticed a rise of fantasy authors who want to like add diversity. They want to also like be more inclusive, be more socially aware, and like I love that. That's great. but they also want like the fantasy tropes of like the king and the prince, but like not actually a monarchy. It's just like, well, maybe you could have them be a king or a prince and like explore that a bit more detailed. Of like,
yeah, I think it's a fear of being of making characters that are like messy. Like like as I said on my TikTok, I just finished reading the first book in the Elric of Melnemone series, and it's like it is so refreshing to read a book where the protagonist is just kind of a moody, angsty flop boy who makes bad choices, but you still root for him. Like there needs to stop being this fear of likability, of unlikability. Like I don't like Elric, but I'm invested in his story and I know why he's the protagonist. And like there are so many great characters in stories or like great narratives that are not great because the main character is great. Like I don't love Paul. Like Paul Atreides is not my favorite character in Dune, but he is the reason why the story goes together. Like you don't have to love the main character to love a story.
Yeah, I've noticed. It's funny that you mentioned that you were a power scaler when you were younger, because like maybe it's just the older I am, but like I've seen people kind of like talk about like their favorite characters, like TikTok posts and all that stuff. Or like the best characters in the series and all that. And like they're almost power scaling writing based on how good of a person they are or like the feats they accomplish to a degree.
The power
like,
part.
Yeah. Well, this guy was nice to 25 people. This guy, so he's a better character than this guy who was like mean to everyone else. I'm like, okay, like you can make characters like wholesome and likable and like. And that's why I like, this is a weird tangent, but like what I like so much about James Gunn's Superman with Clark and like Lois, it's just like that scene in the apartment, he blows up, but like it's understandable. Like he's a person, you see the layers to his character. He's not like trying to be overly wholesome, which I think some Superman can kind of fall into, which I get. You want like that kind of like,
you need a balance.
Yeah, that you want. I think people are trying to overcorrect from like the injustice, the like Man of Steel. Yeah. It's like I don't even like dislike Henry Cavill as an actor, but it's like we are so dark and so intense and so like flat. It's just like, oh my God. Like I do get why we have My Adventures with Superman. It's not for me. And I always feel like a jerk whenever I try to criticize it. But it's like, okay, yeah, James Gunn Superman with like David Corset's like that's it for me.
I do enjoy My Adventures with Superman, but I also like, but David Cornsweet is like perfect to me as Superman. And like I'm working on my Supergirl review because I just finished reading Woman of Tomorrow, and I'm just like, I feel like the interesting thing about Supergirl versus Superman is that Supergirl has more of an edge to her because she didn't totally grow up on Earth, but she's still not a cynic. And I think that there's this desire to make the super family cynical or like overly angsty. It's like there's only one person who does that. That's Connor. Okay, because he's a mutant. Like he's a mutant DNA baby. He's a freaky like toxic BL baby. Let him deal with that. He's the angsty kid. Everyone else is happy. Everyone else is fine. You want to have angsty super stuff, have Lex Luthor mix his DNA with Superman and have a baby. Like
baby
that's
trap him. Just
baby trap your antagonist. Like that's how you do it.
Yeah, it's just, or like I think it's also when it comes to like some of the stuff we see with like later Avatar of like when you have a character who does something like bad or like mean or awful or something like that, and it's so easy to do like, well, here's this like reason as to why it's like that stuff or like or all that, and just and I think we see that more and more in the later Korra stuff as well with characters like Corvia, or just like it's more of like the reason for their hatred of this thing isn't because it's wrong. It's like a political, it's like something else happened in their life, which is why their life this. It's like almost unrelated. Like it's like daddy issues or mommy issues or just like twin issues or just
annoying asshole issues.
And just it's again like I still like Korra for the most part. I kind of wish it ended at season 3. I know that would be too dark, but just like that's such a good ending. And I think Korra's a really strong character. I just think a lot of the surrounding factors. And the big one is, unfortunately, how Avatar goes about politics. You see it in the foreground. Is at its most flawed in Korra. I think it's. I think the White Lotus are pretty strong for the most part because you can justify like, oh, they were in prison. They're like religious zealots to a degree, and they're still. I think when you compare them to Amon and who's that guy, Satan?
Her uncle.
To Unalak, something like that.
Unalak,
and Corvia. I think there's more of like space for the Red Lows to like show their humanity, but also be like, well, they're not totally in the wrong to a degree. We see other people in the Earth Kingdom who are just like, oh, thank God that lady's gone. Thank God.
Yeah.
Which
No, go ahead.
No, it's like which I think is reasonable, all things considered. Just
yeah, I think Korra is hard because, again, like the first season makes sense, even though I don't love it, because like Korra's arc is about how attached she is to her bending and who's her antagonist, someone who could take away her bending, and so like that's a really, you know, you have the perfect villain for the hero to fight, to challenge and learn something about herself allegedly, but then after that, it's like what is she learning from Unalak that she really needed to know that she couldn't have learned from just Tenzin telling her about the spirit world or Jinora? Yeah. You know, the Red Lotus is a little bit more complicated, but even with that, it's like it's not as if like it's the thing that's interesting about that season is the rebirth of the air nomads.
Yeah.
Like that's what's interesting about that season, and that was and how that affects everyone, how that affects everybody, especially like Boomy and Tenzin. And now you have an evil airbender, which is interesting. But then what airbending culture then means is not also examined in that. That's for the movie. And that's why the movie feels like a Korra B-side movie. Because I'm like, but we already, you know, it's like we already kind of had this. And I just feel like that's kind of the problem with like these political plot lines that don't really have the spiritual emotionality that was so key in Avatar. Because even though I have feelings about it, like Aang trying to figure out, do I hold on to my cultural practices or do I defeat the Fire Lord? How do I navigate being the Avatar and being Aang? That is something that like people understand. But like, how does Korra's politics evolve? How does she change the landscape of the thing? Yeah. And it's like she isn't built to handle that part of her storylines, nor is she ever evolved to ever need to do that.
Yeah. I think it's that thing of just like Korra as a character, the layers with her are there, and she is like nuanced. But like when it comes to like the political stuff, she will. I say she gets like halfway there each season, but then it's just like a twist is thrown in. I think that's why I do like the Zahir and his plot line so much, because they're not like as big as a political force to a degree. You're seeing more of like their worshippers. You're seeing like people around them. They're a better like Avatar gang than the gang we see in Korra for the most part. They do have more chemistry and more like they talk to each other. I will say, to be fair, I think that's the one season Korra and Asami kind of have chemistry for the most part.
Yeah, they're really good that season. Nothing like, you know, people who date each other's exes. But I also
she's
think
out there, Jerry. She's out there. She loves it.
Exactly. I think also, you know, the thing about the gang is that like the supporting cast of Avatar: The Last Airbender is all full of bangers. Like even though Toph is a side character, still iconic. You know, like they're all like Katara is great, Sokka is great, you know, Aang is great, Zuko is great. You know, even Ty Lee and May, they're underdeveloped, but they serve a purpose. They have a tiny itty bitty arc that fits the overall narrative, and then they're done. You know. But like Asami, Mako, Bolin, and I love Asami. I have a poster of her. Flop, flop, flop. Like they're all just very boring people.
She's the less interesting Bulma briefs, to be honest.
Yeah, and like Tenzin is like if Tenzin is gonna be in the show, all it does is make me want to watch a show that has Tenzin and his siblings and Lin. I don't like. That's why I don't understand why they have these older characters with the younger kids. It's like they're legacy kids. They automatically bring attention away from the modern day gang. Like why are they there?
Weird thing about Tenzin and Lin, I would argue they're more part of Korra's crew than Mako, Bolin, and Asami. Asami in season 4 is so strange. I get that she has her arc with her dad, but when I rewatch season 4, it's like there are multiple moments where Asami should be the one like looking for Korra because she has a plane, she has a car, she has a sub, and it's always Opal. Like it's
give her something to do.
yeah. It's like Yeah, honestly, like if Korra got with Opal, I wouldn't like be super opposed to that because I do think they have like a brief amount of chemistry in that one episode they're together with. It's like they're a similar age, but it's just like it's the Avatar curse of having chemistry with everyone except the person you date. Just like
literally.
Yeah, but yeah, just yeah, that's. But yeah, I'm not opposed to Avatar as in the future. Even though like I think we're at a level when it comes to fandom of maybe some of the glamour is gone to a degree, maybe some of the allure because we are older. I think so many people grew up with Avatar. It was such an impactful show. There's so many cartoons now being influenced by Avatar, and even anime being influenced by Avatar right now. That I don't think it's going to go away. But if it's not going to go away, I do think it's like worthwhile to rationally look at as like any other piece of art you love.
Yeah, I agree. And I think, I love this show, but I'm also someone who loves to criticize things I love. Like that's my passion, like both as like a writer, as a critic, as everything. So to me, there is no like there's no confusion over like I love Avatar, but I could also tell you all the things that I would fix about it because like art is meant to be consumed and you build upon it. Like Elric is a response to Conan, but not because he like Michael Moorcock hated Conan, but he's like, I want to challenge this paradigm, and so like, and that's how art evolves, like I love Superman, and I also love deconstructions of Superman that are not actually Superman. Like I just leave him alone, but I'll watch Invincible, I'll do that. But it's and I think that's kind of the thing is like, I love Avatar. I'm ready for something else to fill that zeitgeist space. Because sometimes it's so clear when you can see like any millennial fantasy, like even the Poppy Wars, the first half of it, I'm like, wow, you love Avatar. And it's like, it's fine, but I'm ready for something else to kind of take the lead, which I think it's actually just Game of Thrones, honestly, because it's a lot of that.
Yeah, but there was kind of Dragon Prince, which I didn't like, but it's just
I never even watched. The animation made me nauseous, so I couldn't.
The animation the first season is definitely pretty funky. It's not the top tier 3D animation, but I do hope we do get like it's a Song of Ice and Fire, not even a deconstruction, just more of a critical lens through certain characters, kind of show or book or movie in the future. I just hope we get that because it's just like I think that's how we also just improve upon art. If you just make stuff you love and it's just you love stuff like unconditionally, I don't think you're going to get something amazing through that. As you can see through my title, Sitcom Champion, that's kind of my issue I have with a lot of sitcoms. I love sitcoms. I love a lot of, but I do think we're at a weird level right now when it comes to sitcoms, which is why I was so impressed with Young Sheldon and Ted of all shows. Of like really fascinating prequel series that like put like previous characters under a more critical lens and like kind of removing the like this is gonna sound strange, but it's like I love it when a show is able to like remove aspects of the power fantasy to a degree every now and then. And with Ted, it's removing like it's like this is something Seth MacFarlane is weirdly keen at. It's just like removing aspects of just like the glamour to a degree and like reflecting on nostalgia. I think is a good way to describe Seth MacFarlane with his show, also The Orville, which is his Star Trek parody. But it's The Orville. I really love. It has
Orville was really good.
Yeah, Deep Space Nine. It's not like a deconstruction of Star Trek in the way we kind of like label deconstructions, but it's like what if the Federation would be like here and just like showing the flaws of it. And then like I love that because Seth MacFarlane so obviously loves Star Trek. It's like it's such a good show because of that. But yeah. Anyway, to wrap up this little session, why don't you let us know where people can find you, what you're working on the future?
I am on YouTube. Those are my current videos, and I am working on a video about Supergirl, which I'm hoping to get out by next week. I am working on a longer Avatar brain rot video because I have a lot of feelings about that. And of course, I'll be doing a video about the Odyssey because which is how we first got into each other's orbit. Because I've been reading actually right now. I'm reading The World of Odysseus by M.I. Finley. It's kind of an academic book about like the world and the society that gave birth to the Iliad and the Odyssey, the Greek Dark Ages and things like that. Because and we've talked about this before, I'm really fascinated about this movie, even though I hate the way it looks.
Yeah.
I hate the way it looks from head to toe, but I'm also like, I want to see what he does, because if we know one thing about Nolan, he loves a white man's journey.
He is a good director.
Yeah. And it's like, you can't get more, white male journey than The Odyssey. And it just like the discourse it'll generate alone will be.
Yeah, it's funny because I think I pissed off both sides, because when the sets first came off, I was made of the costumes. It led to my favorite comment ever of someone just commented on my TikTok. I wish I'll probably have it framed, of Christopher Nolan's a multi-millionaire making movies, and you're a nobody with a mustache. I love that comment. That's my favorite. Good. Just a nobody with a mustache. Just like, I mean, you're right, but also, like, because I've been defending Lupita and stuff like that, it's like that's become my whole other conversation. Now I have like these. I made everyone mad, but yeah, I am intrigued by Nolan's Odyssey. I think it will be good. I don't think it's going to be at its peak of potential. Yeah. And there's a whole discussion of Greek voices and all that kind of stuff.
And it's all really interesting. And it's like, it was so funny. I was reading in this book, and the line that they give in their description of Helen is they call her rich-haired Helen. And I was like, ooh, that's a really flexible translation choice.
Oh my God, dude, nightmare of when you're taking a class of like ancient Greek language, and just like, it's like, okay, this could mean, because the issue with Helen is that we don't have a ton of statues of her. We might have an idea of what she looks at, but when you have a character like Heracles, it's like, okay, black hair, beard. We know that. So many just like vague descriptions of like, this could mean blonde, it could mean like light bronze, it could potentially mean red depending on the context. But just, that's a whole thing to talk about when you're talking about like just translations of like old words in ancient Greece. So that like, that's a whole
that's been like my fun adventure, because I think when I hear that, I would have styled Lupita differently to like translate rich hair. I don't even think makeup. I think she should have had more hair. I think we should have had like a fuller hair design to kind of like add some embroidery to it. Like really, if rich haired Helen, like translate that into like how her hair looks.
It is weird because like you have one of the most beautiful women who has like a look that I would describe as like, unlike a lot of the cast, like Matt Damon, Anne Hathaway, Zendaya, Tom Holland. I think Lupita fits like really well into like this era, like face wise. She looks like someone who's just out of time. And it's just like, why is she just wearing white? Where's her gold? Where's her like embroidery? Where's her just?
She would show the kind of like those dots that they would wear as like part of makeup. Things. She would look so good with that. And they're it's like, go on girl, give us nothing. And I'm just like,
it's so strange.
It's disappointing, but it's like, and it's so funny because I remember when I was like, oh, she's going to be Helen of Troy. Everyone was like, no, she's going to be Clytemnestra. And I remember thinking to myself, Telemachus is talking to a man. That man has to be Menelaus. Yeah. There's a woman sitting next to him. That has to be Helen. And it's like, so clearly she's Helen. Like,
I remember, before we saw any trailers, me and my friends were talking, and like, it's like, I would like, she'd be pretty cool Penelope, because Penelope does have like some kind of like African origins to a degree when it comes to like location wise, but it's also just like, I get like, Nolan is taking the most British approach to this movie of just removing all the color. Because like, funny enough, that was a thing with a lot of like, when England kind of claimed Greece as their heritage, a lot of scholars, like English architects, also just kind of removed a lot of color that was in ancient Greek statues. It's like, no, these statues were colorful. The armor was colorful. The knives were colorful. And it's just like, it's why when people think of Greece, they think of the white statues. Like, no, that's a British thing. These are meant to be like gold and yellow and red and blue. It's so frustrating to talk about all why, because I think like I think it's also why my attraction to a man like Robert Eggers has just grown, because just like man, he's a real history nerd, not in like the weird racist white guy, but like I love fashion kind of thing. It's just like or like Del Toro's Frankenstein. Like that's a fantastic
beautiful
movie of like when it comes
to
fashion. Like I have issues with that movie, obviously, but it's like there's so much detail with that. It's just like that's so good. It's just like Nolan, come on, man.
Yeah, and I grew up watching like Sword and Sandal, like Demetrius and Gladiator movies, and it's just like, give us some embroidery. we used to be seeing women's nipples through these shits. Like, you know, like give us something. It's just like it's frustrating. But anyway, that's what I'm working on next. I'm really looking forward to it, and it was great talking to you.
Yeah. All right, take it easy. Bye. And